Hi there, welcome to this week session. Right, so as usual, we'll get started real soon. Just quick reminder and disclaimer. Since we're talking about the financial markets, everything that I'll be covering in today's session will be based on my personal point of view, and of course, they are mainly meant for educational purposes, right? And of course, if you're trading the markets, just be aware of the risk involved and always have your own proper risk management in place. Okay. So with that said, we'll jump into the markets. I'll kind of highlight what are some of the opportunities to keep an eye on for this week. At the same time, I'll do a quick review on I would say two trades that we kind of had last week. One of it, of course, hit our stops. The other one hit our targets. And yeah, it's a 50-50% hit rate last week, but the risk reward ratio basically just made up for that, right? We also have the NFP last week itself. Just want to very quickly bring up the data over here. Okay, still loading, yeah, right. So we do have like very positive data from the US. However, the dollar itself, to be honest, didn't really move like very significantly, right? So, we'll take a look at what the charts are telling us for the week itself. Okay, if you take a look at this week, we are kind of relatively short because today there are a couple of like major holidays. Tomorrow, there's not much of a news coming in. Wednesday, yes, we do have important CPI data from the US, and then generally that's about it, right? So pretty light week in terms of news, which is something that, to be honest, is great for technicals, right? Because if there are major news coming in, sometimes the news itself can really shift the price itself, and the charts will need to update it. From there, when there's not much of a pre-planned kind of like economic data, then oftentimes it's easier to look at the markets from a technical point of view. Okay, so let's start off with the dollar index over here. Or in fact, I'll just talk about the two trades that we had first, right? One of it was the pound dollar. To be honest, it was a little bit unfortunate that we got stopped out of this trade, but that's the setup conditions. That's how we kind of protect the downside as well. Because overall, the high time frame projection is still the pullback, right? I mean, structurally, nothing has really changed. We're kind of still expecting this pullback towards the key area. But basically, last week we kind of got stopped out from here, right? Got stopped out from here, okay, because of this move. Yeah, so it is what it is. There are, if you kind of like look at this here, there is actually that setup today, but again, it's a Monday, it's a holiday. I'm not so keen in kind of jumping in. But that's a little bit unfortunate on the last week's trade, right? But the other one was really great. Was the dollar yen, right? So dollar yen, the expectation we had was for it to continue higher. And then of course that trade is where we kind of took it here, right? And then very nicely moved towards our target. There was a little bit of drawdown, but very quickly the price just start moving into our favor, right? And the thing about the setups that I personally use over here and share with you guys is really based on the risk reward 1:2. Sometimes you might want to consider like extending the targets, which means you might take partial and then you go for TP3 or even open targets. Really depends on your personal preference. But for me, I just like to look at it from 1 to 2 perspective, and then if it hits it, great, I'm just gonna get out and then I'll just look for an opportunity. Instead of kind of holding on to it unless like it's super clear, right? In terms of like the overall direction and trend, then yeah, I might consider that. But in normal circumstances, I'll just do a very simple like hit my targets. I'm just gonna get out of that trade. All right, so that was generally what happened last week. We do have like couple of setups last week as well, but they did not really trigger and got involved in it right now. So we'll take a look at this week here. right? And then we'll see if any opportunity really stand up. Okay. So first thing, dollar index. The overall expectation didn't really shift, as I mentioned. NFP came, but to be honest, not much of a movement. So overall structure here, we're still looking at a possibility of the downside, right? Where I'm expecting price to retest this low, kind of take out that low. So the direction we are focusing on for this week is still bearish, okay? Where we expect the dollar to strengthen a little bit, come into the key area around the 99.50 to 99.80. That will be the area that we can consider looking to sell it, okay? And then of course the target is where that swing low is for the dollar index. The invalidation level is this high here, 100.5. As long as price remains below that, we're gonna maintain a bearish perspective for now, okay? What I like about this fit areas or this key areas is you can see that it's actually just above this highs as well as this high, right? So this can act as a potential, from an SMC perspective, a potential liquidity area where we can kind of fake break this highs and then the market just U-turn, right? So it's a combination of the wave perspective as well as the SMC perspective, right? And then of course, if you kind of look into the euro side of things, it's just going to be the inverse most of the time, right? And in this case here, we're looking at euro dollar. Similarly, pulling back towards the 15.618 Fibonacci area, all right, and we'll be looking at potential buy setups there, okay? So invalidation is here. The thing is, if price really break through this low, then the entire structure needs to be updated accordingly, right? So what you want to look out for, of course, is again going down to the lower time frame. If the market comes into the key area, we get some kind of buy setups here. That will be ideal. Okay, so it might happen within this week. We are not that far off, right? Right now the price is trading about 1.14. The key area is about 1.135, 1.1320. So it's about like within the 100 pip range, which the average daily movement of euro dollar is very attainable to kind of hit this by tomorrow. Okay, so we'll see. Keeping this in the watch list as well, and see how price is going to react off that key level. GBP USD, right? So this one is where I just now briefly touched on as well. Structurally, nothing has shifted. We're still expecting the move down, right? So this is based on the principle of a three wave, 1, 2, 3. We did take out that high, but we didn't really manage to close above it with momentum anyway. Kind of like a little bit of fake. So from Elliott wave perspective, right? Instead of like labeling it WXY, we can label it as an ABC here. It's a way to differentiate for me what's a typical three wave move and what's a kind of like expanding flat, right? So this one potentially can be an expanding flat, right? Where we take out this high. If the market comes down here and take out this low, then that is a potential expanding flat for another move back up, right? So to be honest, this one here to me, in the short run, is definitely an ample kind of like room for us to potentially make a short trade profit. Okay, and I kind of show you just now on the hourly, we do technically have that setup, right? It's again, my personal preference is I don't really like to jump into a trade kind of too early in the week, right? Especially on a Monday market. But I mean, you guys should be familiar with the setups that I'm using. If you manage to scout out this opportunity and kind of like take this trade, that's perfect, right? I mean, right now is definitely a very good opportunity if you're in this trade to just shift this to break even. Okay, because generally, if you get about like close to 1:1, right? In this case here, you can see we are very, very close to 1:1. It's often time a good I would say it's often a good time to consider shifting stops to break even when you can't achieve like 1:1. Okay, but of course this one I did not kind of get involved in it. But again, you can see all the conditions are there, right? The setups are there. The high time frame is there. The expectation is there. We have this liquidity sweep. We have this low gets taken out. We have this order block here as well, right? Aligning with the fib areas and then that pullback, right? So this is also a classic kind of a setup, right? again, I might not take every trade, but it doesn't mean that it's not a good trade. Okay. So that's on GBP USD, right? So moving forward, on the high time frame, we have the area towards like, I would say like 33 or 1.34. Okay, so if you kind of mark the 1.34 area, is going to be somewhere there. Okay. So obviously, I wouldn't chase the market by entering now anymore. But what can happen over here is if this continues lower, takes this out, then this becomes a swing high. If it pulls back, we can consider to still ride it to the downside, right? Then you're looking at it as a lower low, lower high kind of like trend setup. Okay, so obviously then you don't need some sort of a liquidity sweep, but all you need is a very clean, maybe fairly gap here. Okay, so that's something that we can look out for as well moving forward, right? If we can't miss this, you don't need to jump in immediately, just look for a next setup. Okay, Aussie dollar, to me, pretty similar to the pound dollar structure. This move up is very corrective, so I don't expect this to just keep going higher. The expectation here is naturally for it to reset by coming down. Okay, that's a pullback. It may not come down as low as 6340. It might just stall here. But nonetheless, we're still expecting that pullback. Okay. But this one here, to be honest, there's no clear setup on the lower time frame as of now, right? I mean, if this comes down and take out this low, that can be a potential setup, going forward. But we'll need to see price takes out this low with momentum, right? So there's certain conditions it needs to meet first. So that's on Aussie dollar, right? So if you take a look at it on the bigger time frames, kind of bigger picture perspective, this pullback is really what we're expecting now. Okay, so that's the focus for the week. Dollar Canadian, this is a diagonal looking structure. Okay, so definitely I'm more interested to see if we can get the reversal set up. Okay, to be more conservative, you want to see price take out this high. If you're aggressive, to be honest, this is a mini high here on the lower time frame. If price can take that out, you can start expecting the reversal to happen right to the upside. So that's on a high time frame, right? I mean, high time frame looks pretty clear in terms of like what's the structure we are looking at and focusing. This potentially the fifth wave as well. If there's a fifth wave, then there's a good chance that the pullback may come up to where the wave 4 structure is at 1.40. Okay, so if you go down to the lower time frame on dollar Canadian, okay, we do have the basic setup criteria, right? You have this low broken, price reverse, we have this high taken out as well. But the details of this is that as price take out this high, you can see that it's not a lot of commitment, right? It's not a lot of momentum. It's not an impulsive move. So I'm not too keen in this entire development for the setup, right? I'm more interested to see if we can move up, maybe take this high with momentum. Okay, with momentum meaning it leaves behind maybe a little bit of a fair gap. Then I'll be more interested to see if we can just wait for the pullback and then take that trade with this swing low in place. Okay, so this one here, I think it's a very, very potential one to have it in your watch list as well. But again, there are certain conditions I need to see first, right? But definitely something to have it for this week's focus. Okay, so that's on the dollar CAD. And then of course dollar yen, we can't mention that as well just now very, very briefly. We're looking at upside. Okay, it's a very simple structure here. We're looking at this as a 1, 2, and of course 3, right? A little bit complex here, but as long as price respect this low, we are expecting a simple 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have that clear directional bias that we can focus on. And then on the lower time frame on the dollar yen, there is that potential setup. Okay, I mean there's that. The one that I'm not very confident in is the lag of the fair gap. I mean, this, you can see this whipsaw candle, that's basically your NFP, right? Which again is not easy to trade off NFP because you can see that's the wick. Okay, so there's no clear fair value gap in terms of this time frame perspective. There's no clear order block as of here. Okay, so what we have is a clean break of structure. We have a clean swing low. Okay, we have some fips. This pullback looks pretty clean as well. Everything is there, right? It's just this part is lacking. Okay. Now again, we don't need a picture perfect setup conditions, right? Nothing's gonna be perfect. It's all about probability. It's all about statistics. So this one here, since we don't have a clean area of confluence, then what I would want to see is the pullback coming in really nice and corrective. Okay. In other words, you don't want to see, okay, so GBP give you context, right? GBP USD came out pretty quickly today. Okay, but because we have this order block, this is pretty okay because of that confluence. But dollar yen here, there's no clean confluence. You do not want price to come down so fast, right? Because then you need another element of confluence, which is a corrective pullback. Because if it's corrective pullback, then you can see it as this is an impulse, this is a correction, right? So elements like that is something that I also consider to build up the conviction on the particular trade, right? Whether I'm very comfortable in it or, you know, I'm not that confident in the particular trade, then maybe I might be more hesitant in taking it. Or if there's a better opportunity, then I'll just focus on the better one, right? Because we also need to factor in the risk exposure on dollar related instruments if you're kind of taking a couple of dollar trades. Okay, so that's on the dollar yen. Then we have gold. Gold is currently testing the key area around the 618. Again, this one here, I'm a little bit cautious simply because in terms of this scale, you can clearly see that this is a very, very clear swing low, right? This would be some sort of an intermediate swing low, I would put it. Where if price comes down and tag this low, it doesn't mean that it's going to be bearish, right? Because this structure can simply be an expanding kind of like flat structure for the move up, right? So this is where it puts me in the perspective where this 618 may not be something of a very strong level to look for a buy. Okay, it's a valid one, but if you are more conservative, you want a safer approach, this area is something that might be more of an interest. Okay, so you can see again from you know, what I'm seeing. Hopefully that is clear to you as well. Okay, on the lower time frame, again, we do have that, but I'm not taking this again because it's a Monday. Number two, I kind of explained on the high time frame why I'm not too keen here. Okay, sometimes for me, a missed trade is better than a trade that, a missed trade to me, I'll be more comfortable in missing a trade as compared to like taking a trade and then being, fully confident in that particular trade. Okay, so that's my personal kind of like style, right? It's not like the only way, right? But I'm just telling you that's my style. Okay, so I to be honest, I actually encourage you guys to go and look at, opportunities and identify trade setups yourself as well, because your style might be very, very different from mine. Some of you may be a little bit more aggressive, in trading, where you don't mind taking more trades, for the opportunities itself. And then I would say just go for it, right? Because then that's your trading style. Okay, so go here. I'm a little bit more patient right now. If this gives a clean bounce, then of course on the lower time frame we can just simply look for break of structure, wait for the pullback, and then we can trade it. If gold price just continue to come lower, then the next key level I'm gonna look out for is the 3245 zone. Okay, so that's on gold. Silver is very clean. We have a very nice and positive break, so we're just basically waiting for the break, waiting for the pullback, right, for potential trade. Okay, so this is super clear, right? Just wait for the pullback. Crude oil, the direction is also very clear. We're bullish on this. Okay, because we are near the top, there won't be any much of a setup right now until the price pulls back. Okay, yeah, so nothing much on that. Just want to share with you the overall structure and direction. Okay, S&P bullish as well, but to be honest, again, you don't want to be buying at the top. You want to wait for the pullback. Okay, whether price will pull back towards 5750, or we're just gonna get a shallow pullback here, we'll see. But to be honest, if it does pull back towards like 5740 to 5750, that will be better. Okay, because this will put you in the situation where gold is, right? You can see the similarity in that. This is definitely, if this pulls back towards here, and give you a buy setup, I'm actually more confident there. Okay, this is like an intermediate key level of a pullback. Okay, so if you go to S&P, that is that similarity, right? Okay, if this pulls back towards this area, it's like an intermediary, kind of like a pullback, right? If this pulls back to here, and give you a buy trade setup, I'm more confident taking that buy trade at that key level. Okay, yeah, so that's my take on S&P. Pound yen, I'm just not too keen at it right now. It's consolidating. Okay, so I'm not gonna be focusing too much on that. Aussie yen is something I'll be looking out for as well. Okay, in terms of if we can get a shorter time frame move back down, right? So this one here, if I pull fibs from the high to the low, okay, we're kind of testing the 618, right, which is a crucial level. And then not only that, we also see that price actually took up, some of those highs. Okay, now obviously you don't just kind of sell it because of that, but if you can see some reaction from the market coming down impulsively, that gives you more clue that, alright, it's rejecting this area, we can look to sell it, right? And then what we're looking at is a very simple structure of a 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then of course if you zoom out, then that would come into areas like here, where it's a simple 3-wave pullback of this leg. Okay, so yeah, Aussie yen would definitely be in the watch list, but we want to see on the lower time frame, as I mentioned, the price needs to give you that clue that it wants to U-turn. Okay, so if you combine a little bit of like SMC perspective of things, right, we have this huge momentum candle, right, so that leaves behind a fair value gap. So in SMC, we have this model where if price can close back down with momentum below this previous fair value gap, we call this an inverse fair value gap, right? So basically, you can just imagine, right, price inverse the previous gap. And then if you can get a pullback here, that would give us a sell setup, right? And of course, you have some sort of a like triple top liquidity sweep at top, and then of course this break will also break that low. Okay, so keep an eye on that. Potentially maybe tomorrow we might maybe see something like this. If we see something like that, then we wait for another day. Maybe by Wednesday we see that pullback, then we can take that potential setup on Wednesday or Thursday. All right, so that's the plan on the odd yen. Okay, pound odd, nothing there. Again, not the clearest structure at the moment. Okay, very corrective move to the upside, but then this also very corrective. Okay, if from here the price came down impulsively, taking out some of this low, it changes the entire structure, because then I'll be more confident to say, alright, the pullback is where we can look to sell. But because this this reaction here is like so corrective, it opens up the possibility where this can also bounce back up. Okay, and that's the reason why I think right now is not the clearest, and therefore we just skip. Okay, nothing much on the pound odd side for me. BTC. Okay, I think BTC is quite clean, right? From this angle here, I mean internally, if you count it, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But to me, I think this entire part is pretty much a corrective development. So what I'll be expecting is upside. Okay, I mean, to kind of confirm this upside, obviously price needs to take out that high. But I would say from here on, any corrective pullback, we can still trade to the upside first. Okay, whether we are just gonna see this as a 1, 2, 3, right? And then one more move down, maybe then that would develop this as a B and C. It's not so important right now because we are still, you know, we don't need to forecast too far ahead. We just need to know what's the likelihood of price doing next, right? And we just anticipate the next move first. Okay, which means potentially this move, right? Whether this would break this high or not, there is still the opportunity that we can look to buy, right? And what I like about this low here is we kind of took out this low area and then bounce off very clearly, right? So that's the confluence. Okay, so to me, I think the fit we obviously need to keep adjusting right now because market is still developing, right? But the idea here is if you can get some sort of a pullback, definitely you want to be focusing on the upside for now until structure shift. Okay, so I think Bitcoin here is also a very, very clear opportunity for the week. Just bear in mind that cryptocurrency obviously would be more volatile. Okay, so bear that in mind if you're kind of trading into this. Okay, so for me, the things to note, I mean, let me just clean up some of the other stuff that it's not so crucial. Okay, just to keep things a little bit more focused. I would kind of like say dollar CAD, dollar yen, Aussie yen, and BTC will be the few that is clearer. Okay, and if you really want to squeeze something in, then GBP is also worth noting, and of course gold, right? But I think we discuss gold in details as of what I'm looking out for. Okay, so those are the things to note. Cool. Noel here is asking about Aussie Canadian. Alright, so let me just very, very quickly jump over to Aussie CAD. Let me clean up everything. Okay, just a quick one on what I see over here, right? This move down is corrective in nature. Okay, of course, if you look at it from a hard, kind of bigger picture perspective, this would be the swing low in control. This is potentially some sort of a leading diagonal, right? So this can be wave 1 completing there. Would I say this is the entire completion? Probably not. Okay, I would kind of expect this low to be tested, which means something sort of like that. Okay, and then maybe from here, that's where we get the next move up. Yeah, because this is corrective, this seems corrective as well. So we expect one more drop, right? 3-wave expectation again. Yeah, so if that's the view and that's the expectation that we're gonna have for the chart, right? Then of course, you want to mark out like where are some of the key areas to look out for. Where potentially we can get another leg to the downside, right? So this one here, you can see we potentially might be ending this 3-wave here, right? Around that 8935, 8960. So again, that forms your key level or key area, right? And then you want to see if you can get some sort of a sell trade setup building for you. Okay, so that's on odd CAD. Okay, that's how I view it. And then your key potential targets will be somewhere around this zone, right? Like psychological number 0.88 is a nice one as well. Okay. Yeah, so that's my take on Aussie CAD, right? If you're looking at that. Good. Okay. Marvin asked about Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar we kind of cover. Okay. We kind of look at it from the perspective that this can move lower. Okay. But we definitely want that confirmation, as I mentioned. You know, for price to take up like some of the key lows here. Then we can look for a sell side. Okay. But this is very similar to the pound, right? I mentioned this in details as we progressed just now earlier. But let's look at Euro Pound. Okay. Euro Pound very quickly. Let me just scroll through. Okay. I wouldn't say long term, but right now looking at this part here, I would focus my bias on upside, right? So something like this. Okay. So what we can look out for, or why, you know, would I be expecting this is based on the projection of a simple three-wave development. Okay. I would see this as a swing low point. Okay. And of course we have a little bit of a diagonalish kind of looking structure, right? So potentially this is a reversal. Okay. Now the part is this high hasn't been taken out yet. So technically it's not confirmed as price will be reversing yet. We don't get that sign. But again, we are anticipating that reversal, right? So there are a couple of things that kind of have confluences. You have that momentum candle, right? So in SMC, that's your fair value gap. If you take your fit from swing high to, swing low to swing high, okay, there's a little bit of fit confluence over there. And then of course a simple three-wave expectation of a WXY, right? So this puts you in the perspective where whether this is just going to be a correction and this comes down after that, or this is going to be the low and then this is where you're going to take off, and then of course then that will not be WXY, that will be like 1 2 3 4 5. Again, it doesn't matter too much right now because you'll be just focusing on this upside first, right? The only difference will be how are you going to manage that trade. Okay, because if this takes off nicely, you know, you can take your profit off this high or this high, and then that's it. Look for the next trade, based on the expectation that, you know, you'll be just looking at this as a simple three-wave correction. Or okay, if price takes off nicely and then you say, okay, I'm gonna throw my stops. I'm gonna open the target or take partial and then leave the remaining to see how far it can go. Then basically your expectation is this can potentially turn into like 1 2 3 4 5, and then this is the bottom, right? So that's the difference, right? But at the end of the day, for me right now, it's more of like, if this is what the structure we're seeing, we still look for upside first, right? Yeah. So that's my take on Euro Pound. Cool. Okay. Good. Quick one. Any other questions that you guys would have? All good. Right. So that's basically all from my side for today's session. Again, hopefully kind of give you some insights for the week. You know, what are some things to look out for. Yeah, and all the best, right? And I'll see you guys in next week's session. Okay. Good night.